Swami Nityanamine, Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, Paschatadeshatarine, Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. My dear Lord, please guide us all so that we can understand the wisdom of your words and learn how to share that wisdom with others in an effective way. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for coming today. And today we will discuss on this verse 326 from the Bhagavad Gita. And this is an image from my latest book on the Gita called Prayers Inspired by the Bhagavad Gita. Here I've taken the Gita's verses and seen them as inspirations for praying. So from each verse, each key verse is a prayer that is inspired. So you can repeat after me. My dear Lord,
My dear Lord,
help me to learn
help me to learn
how to help others to learn.
how to help others to learn.
Let's recite the verse. Na buddhi bhedam janaye,
Na buddhibedam janaye,
ajnanam karma sanginam,
ajnanam karma sanginam,
joshayet sarva karmani,
joshayet sarva karmani,
vidvan yuktah samacharam.
vidvan yukta samacharan.
The wise should not disturb the mind of those to worldly work inclined. Let them act when gently shown the path to truth that they will know. So taking the Gita's verses and try to translate them in a poetic way so that we get a feel of the Gita itself as a poetry. So I would request different participants to read each one on paragraphs. So the topic I'll be discussing on today is that why don't people listen to you? As parents, you may tell something to our children, you may tell something to our colleagues, our family members. As devotees, we may think something responsible, we may tell something to other devotees. Quite often we tell something and it just doesn't seem to register. So why is it that people don't listen to us? And what can we do so that we are more effectively heard? Yes. Who would like to read the first paragraph? Do we have a mic? Or read loudly? Who has a mic in their throat? Okay.
My dear Lord, you emphasize that good intention is not a substitute for good intelligence. Even when I want to do good for others and guide them toward a higher level of consciousness so that they ultimately connect with you, I need to carefully consider whether such instruction might be disruptive for them, even to the point of being destructive.
Yes. So, we will focus on some key themes over here. Broadly speaking, in this verse, Krishna is talking about two different levels of people. This is the person who is wise, Vidwan, and is Yukta. Yukta means connected, spiritually connected, well well engaged. Yuktaha is the variant of Yuktaha. I think the volume has got increased suddenly. Yuktaha is the variant of yoga. So it's connected. And there is the other person who Krishna says is ignorant, and Saktaha Karmanya Avidwan. So it's unwise, is ignorant, and his Saktaha is attached. So we would like the person who is here to rise and come to this level. Now, this is a natural aspiration that we have, that if we know something, we can do something well. We would like others to also learn that and be able to do that. But sometimes, what happens? We try to raise them up, but instead of going up, they go halfway up and they go further down. And they will go much lower than what they were before. So they will go further down. Now this is desirable, this is not desirable. So if this is what is happening, Krishna is telling that na buddhi bhedam chalayet, that don't disturb others' minds. So the person here may be good intention, but good intention is not good enough. Intention is important, no doubt. But intention alone does not bring the sustenance. Chaitanya had a good intention to protect Sita. Abhimanyu had a good intention to serve his army. At the same time, it didn't work out. So for any result to come in the world, we want a good result to come, intention is important. But along with that, intelligence is important. Now generally, with respect to the physical domain, it's easy to understand. Now say we have a child who doesn't know how to drive a cycle, and you want him to learn to drive. Now they will be very scared, they don't want to drive, we push them a little bit, and we want them to overcome the fear of riding a cycle. That's good, but if they're not yet learned how to drive, we won't send them on the road. My intention is good. I want you to overcome fear of riding a bike, riding a bicycle. But if they're not being trained adequately, it will be disaster that will happen. So intention and intelligence, both are important when we try to share any wisdom with the people. Whether it is practical wisdom, whether it's philosophical wisdom, whatever it is, both of them are important. So I'll elaborate on this theme. So rather than thinking, so the title of the prayer which was that, help me to learn how to help others to learn. What that means is, rather than simply condemning the other person for being insincere or incompetent or dumb or whatever, say, okay, this is where the person is. And how can I help this person to rise from where they are? So the idea is that we don't want this to happen, and the way would be create some steps for them. Create a gradual pathway by which they come to this level. So Krishna says, Joshayet sarva karmani vidvan yukta samachara. That engage them appropriately. Who would like to read the next paragraph? Any of the readers? Mike is coming to you.
When I want to help others rise, and even when they want to rise, I may expect, demand, or insist that they progress faster than they are capable of. Consequently, they may slip and fall, falling further than where they originally were. That is, they may become alienated from spirituality, thinking it to be impractical or impossible, or alienated from spiritualists, thinking them to be too critical or pushy.
Yes. We all probably have this experience. Right? When we try to share some spirituality with others, we're introduced to what we want to share with others. When I was in college, I was introduced to my third year of engineering, and it was life-changing. I always wanted to understand what life is all about. I read a lot of books, but when I read the Bhagavad Gita, I read some asked questions, got answers, like many of the jigsaw puzzles that falling in place. So I became very enthusiastic about sharing with friends. So then after I finished my college, I worked in a company, and I was in a multinational company. Another student also from my college had got a job in the same company. So we used to go in the same bus to the company, and I would join the earlier stop. So he would join the bus a little later, and then I would go. It was almost 1 hour ride. So I would chant or read or hear. I would not talk with anyone else. Not all interested people are not interested in talking with me. Then one day this college friend made a terrible mistake. He made the terrible mistake of asking me, "What are you doing?" Now when he asked me, I answered, and I gave him a crash course in the entire Bhagavad Gita in the 1 minute, 1 hour ride. Starting from how we are the body and the soul, how the spiritual world is a reality, how material riches can give leads to misery, how all God, ultimate divinity is personal, and the personal divinity is only Krishna, and not even Vaikuntha Krishna, Vrindavan Krishna. And I was mentally patting myself on the back. How much I had compressed in 1 hour. Little did I notice that his eyes were actually reeling by the time I finished. And then after that, whenever he would board the bus, he would peek into the bus and see where I was sitting and enter from the other gate. So I thought I was giving him a crash course, but all I gave him was a crash. I just gave him a complete overdose. It was a casual inquiry, and I made it into the existential inquiry. So basically, sometimes we may want to raise people, the intention may be good, but the intention may backfire. Many years later, I met him. He was working in Seattle when I had gone there. He was working in Microsoft at that time. We met and we had a nice chat. I apologize for my words this to him. So it seemed the sister had become a devotee, and his sister had actually undone the damage that I had done. So then I met her sister also, and very nice devotee. So basically, sometimes our intentions will be good. What we want to tell others is valid and valuable, but it will backfire. So to prevent this from happening, so if people are not able to rise, then we want to create a pathway for them. So that's what we will discuss. If our speech doesn't work, if our speech, which is well intentioned, takes people further away from us or further away from where we want them to be, then what can we do? So I talk about 3 things. ACT is my favorite acronym. So I use it for many different things. But I talk about generally when there's communication, it's say between one person, 2. So for communication to be effective, there are 3 aspects. What I am speaking, it has to reach the other person. So first is I have to analyze whether my speech is reaching the other person. The second is does the other person, is this, the reach is there? Reach means, not that I speak loudly, it is reach means does it reach the head and the heart. The second is, does the other person have the relationship with me to want to listen to me? And then after that, does the person have the capacity to rise? So, first of all, that I may be speaking something, is it making sense to that person? If it makes sense, does that person consider me to be a well-wisher, an authority? And then, does that person have the capacity to rise? Now, these three factors will determine, say, if somebody is in a well, and I throw a rope to them to come out. Now, I may be throwing out a rope, but if the rope is not reaching down to where they are at, then it's not going to. I may say, I'm going to throw the rope down, but it's not come to you. So that's why, if somebody is at the bottom of a well, and I'm here, the three aspects. So first is the rope we are sending, is it actually reaching down to the roots? The second is, does the person trust us? Okay, I'm in a bad position in the well, but I don't know what you want to do with me. Maybe you'll hold me hostage. You can be worse outside the well. Does the person actually trust us enough to hold on to the rope and come out? Or to be pulled out, whatever. And the next is, does the person have the capacity? That means, if you want them to come out, do they have the strength to do it? So that, these three things, whenever you want to help someone, those three things need to be considered. So we are going to talk more in terms of speech over here, but it applies in various areas of life. Speaking is not divorced from living. Because spirituality, when we speak, it is going to help others become better in terms of their actions, their living. So now, I'll start with 3 verses from Bhagavad Gita for choice. So ACP. So A is analyze. You want to analyze how is my speech. So 17-15 in the Bhagavad Gita is about austerity of speech. Anudvegakaram vakyam satyam priyahitam chayat swadhyayabhyasanam chaiva vanmayam tapa uchyate. So what Krishna says over here is the attributes of speech. They can be analyzed in broadly 2 categories. Krishna says first of all that whatever we speak, so we use 4 attributes, but I'll put them in 2 distinct ways over here. First, Krishna says our speech needs to be sensitive, and second is it needs to be sensible. So sensitive is what appeals to the heart. Sensitive is what inspires, sensitive is what touches. And sensible is what appeals to the head. So whenever we are trying to help anyone, their head and the heart both are to be involved. So there's reasoning faculty and there is their emotional faculty. The sensitive, Krishna gives 2 criteria for that. He says the speech should be anudvegakaram. Anudvegakaram means it has to be non-agitating. Everybody in the world is agitated. One of the characteristics of Kali Yuga is upadvritaha. The mind is constantly disturbed. And we are not meant to disturb people's minds further. Now, of course, sometimes the truth may be disturbing, but we should not want to disturb others. When Hanuman meets Lord Ram for the first time, does anyone remember where that meeting happens? The meeting of Hanuman and Ram? Yes? Kishkinda, yes. So there, what has happened is, Lord Ram is in great agony. Sita has been separated, Sita has been abducted, and let alone find her. There is no knowledge of where she is also, even if you see the eye or not. So Lord Ram is lamenting. And at that time, Hanuman appears in the garb of a Brahmana and he starts speaking. And he's introducing himself, he's asking who they are. But at that time, he speaks such sweet words. And just hearing those words, Lord Ram turns to Lakshmana and says, whoever this person is must be a very learned person. This person knows Gita, this person has imbibed the culture of how to speak. Just hearing this person speak has pacified my mind. So what happened over here? This is, the mind was agitated, but Hanuman's speech made the mind calm. We decrease the resistance. Sorry. So, Anudvegakaram. At a basic level, the speech should be non-agitating. Was my telling decrease the AC agitating for you? I hope you don't be too hot over here. So now, of course, to say speech is non-agitating is not a very high standard, you could say. It's like, suppose somebody invites us to their home for food. And after that, they ask, okay, how was the food? And we say, the food was edible. Now, not only is that not a compliment, it is such a low compliment that it's a criticism. They say, like, you tap somebody by faint praise. So that speech should be non-agitating is a ground level criteria. Of course, food has to be edible. What do you mean food is edible? It's a basic level, but sometimes even that is lost in speech. But we could say there's a kind of funnel where speech, Krishna says, should be priyam. Priyam is pleasing. Not only non-agitating, but along with that, pleasing. Anudvegakaram and priyam. Now, sometimes pleasing speech can simply be flattery. And flattery is often filled with lies. So Krishna says that's not the kind of speech you should be giving. That's where the sensible part comes in. Is what we speak needs to be truthful. Now, we don't have to tell the entire truth all the time. A child is struggling to learn maths, and the child is a 7th, 3rd standard. The child comes to the parents and says, this maths is so difficult to learn. And they say the father is a PhD in maths. So you find this difficult? See, this is a 700 page book you will have to read in future. This is a triple integral calculus. It's a triple integral calculus, the child is never triple scared. Scared of maths, scared of the future study of maths, scared of the father who's being like this. Isn't it? So, the truth has to be spoken, but that part of the truth which is helpful. So, helpful is become. So, speak the truth that is helpful. Suppose a couple have been married for 25 years. And then, on the 25th wedding anniversary, the husband says to his wife, today I will give you a gift that I have been preparing for the last 25 years. Really? What is the gift? Today I will tell you all the faults that I have observed in you in the last 25 years. And by understanding these faults, you can become a better person. That will be his last wedding anniversary. So, now, not all truth is helpful. We all know we have many faults, and we are all in our own way working to deal with the faults. If somebody bombards us with all the faults that we have, we get crushed. So, somebody is dozing off, you throw a stone at them, they wake up. It's a small bug and they wake up. Throw a large boulder at them, they will never wake up. They'll go into permanent sleep. So the idea is that even when we speak the truth, that truth which is helpful. So in one sense, people say that when speech is sensitive, it offers encouragement. And when speech is sensible, it offers enlightenment. Enlightenment in this context means that a person becomes lit with the knowledge of, okay, what am I going to do? Suppose we are trying to teach somebody cycling and they are falling off repeatedly. Maybe they need encouragement. Yeah, we all fall at times. We all can wake up or can rise up and try and relearn. That's encouragement. But suppose somebody is falling because when they start pedaling, they pedal very forcefully with one leg and the whole cycle topples out. Then at that time, we need to tell them specifically, okay, yeah, you can learn to cycle. Yeah, but how do I learn? What am I doing wrong? Suppose our laptop is not working and we call customer care. And the customer care says, okay, I have this problem. My laptop is not turning on. Don't worry, you can do it. You can use the laptop work. I don't need encouragement. I need you to fix it. You need to tell me what I should do to fix it. So there's a time when encouragement is required and a time when enlightenment is required. Now, quite often when we are guiding others, both are required. If you see the Bhagavad Gita itself, in many ways, the Gita's main body is enlightenment. Krishna is analyzing the various parts of yoga and he is giving guidance about how to function. But along with that, there are many places where Krishna is encouragement. Say 2:11. The very first verse, Krishna is saying, Ma Shuja. Is that the first verse? That is the last verse. 1866. But first verse was what? Ashochanam Shochistam Pragyavadam Shabhasase Katasuna Sattasunshya Nan Shochanti Pandita. So it's like a say a parent has come, the mother has come to a doctor, the child is sick, the mother is very scared and alarmed. Is my child got some terrible disease? How will the child be cured? What will happen? So the doctor starts by saying, Ashochan. No, don't worry, it's not worth worrying about. And please come. It's not worth worrying about, not worth getting worked about. I have got it under control. And Krishna gives the whole message, and at the end he says, Ma Shuja. Don't worry. I have explained to you what the problem is, I have explained to you how to deal with it. So my point is that Krishna offers himself both encouragement and enlightenment in the message of the Gita. And that's how the Gita's message is so remarkably transformative. So we can look, when we are communicating with others, what is it that we will be lacking? Is it that I'm not being sensitive enough? Is it that I'm not being sensible enough? Is it that what I am speaking does not have enough rational content to persuade the other person at a logical level? Or is it that there is no emotional connect over there? There is no inspiration. So the more we analyze our speech, some of us may be veering more towards being sensible but not sensitive. Some of us may be going towards sensitive but not sensitive. If you consider, if you are only sensitive, then we can go in the direction of being sentimental. And that can be harmful. Bhakti Saraj Thakur gives the example that, say somebody is walking at the edge of a high-rise building and there is no parapet wall over there, and they have come very close to the edge. And at that time, there's no time for sensitivity over there. Stop! The person may feel bad, but if they don't feel bad at that time, they will not feel anything afterwards. Isn't it? So, if at that time you become sensitive, that will be disastrous. So, it can't be, if it is too sensitive, sometimes the truth has to be spoken. If not spoken, it will become sensitive. But if we are old, so it's like here we will become headless. That there is no more, we are not even thinking clearly. But if we are sensible, if we go too far in that, then we will become heartless. You may speak the right thing, but you speak it in a way that completely misses the point. It completely alienates the person. So we need a balance of both. So we want it to be both sensitive and sensible. So when it appeals to both the head and the heart, when it appeals to the head by being sensible, and when it appeals to the heart by being sensitive, and that's where is the maximum chance of the speech being effective. That means the speech reaches the other person. And Srila Prabhupada, often when he would give his classes, it was very philosophical. This is that he would make philosophical point. It would be focused more on enlightenment. At the same time, after the classes, when Prabhupada would talk with people, he was able to connect with people at a very deep level. And if we hear the memories of those who had the association of Prabhupada, what they most cherish in those memories is not the philosophically cutting classes that Prabhupada gave. Yes, philosophically cutting conversation that they remember that, but what they cherish is the sweet loving exchanges. But what Prabhupada did, touched their heart. So, one time, Jadurani Mataji, she came to Prabhupada and she says, Prabhupada, there is a picture over here on your asana where you sit. I need to clean that. So, can I step on that asana to clean that? And actually, there is a picture of Radha Krishna. So, Prabhupada is fine and said, to serve Radha Krishna, you can step on my head also. Now, of course, you will never do that. But point was that Prabhupada spoke in such a way that it was very sweet. At one time, there were a couple of devotees who were quite leading in the movement. At that time, it was nascent stage of the movement, the early stage. But before they had come to Bhakti, they had been involved in some drugs. That's quite common among the counterculture. Only taking drugs, but sometimes this is for money, people would peddle some drugs. So the police had apprehended them and they had been told that they would have to serve a sentence for 3 months. Now they were feeling extremely embarrassed. They had been associated with Prabhupada, they had been initiated, they were telling others to follow the four agreeable principles. And now they themselves had to go to jail sentence for a few months. So when they came to Prabhupada, Prabhupada just smiled and said, Krishna was also born in the jail. And now they felt so affirmed by Prabhupada's statement that Prabhupada is not judging and rejecting us. So there are moments when these are like moments where of make or break. Either the person can be drawn very close, or the person's door of the heart can get shut. So we often hear of Srila Prabhupada as uncompromising, speaking the truth without any hesitation. That's true. But Prabhupada's focus was not just to be uncompromising. Prabhupada's focus was to bring people to Krishna consciousness. And that's why he had a very intelligent and devotional, divine blend of being sensitive and sensible. So this is where we can introspect and see when I speak, what is it that is lacking? When I am telling others, if it's not reaching, maybe there is something which is deficient in my speech. That's the first part. What is the acronym we are discussing? So A is analyze our speech. And the C is about the connection that we have with others. So analyze our speech and connect with others. So how exactly I am connecting with the other person? One of the things that when we try to relate with others, often there is a particular dynamic in the relationship. What do I mean by the dynamic in the relationship? Let's say if this is the authority and this is the subordinate. So now we could say there are two modalities of relating. One is it's a very vertical relationship. The authority is up here, the subordinate is down here. Now the other could be the other is the authority is here, the subordinate is here. So broadly, most of Eastern culture is quite hierarchical. Most of Western culture is much more egalitarian. And what happens is in different cultures, the authority is, it works out differently. Quite often what happens is, in more hierarchical societies, the society is hierarchical, the authority comes from the position. That position means what? That the person is in a particular room. If the parent is there, children expect to listen to the parents. If there is a particular authority figure, you have to listen to the authority. So in society that are hierarchical, the authority comes from position. However, in non-hierarchical societies, the authority has to be earned by disposition. It's not that authority is not there, but authority has to be earned. It is not that just because you're older, that means you're wiser. No, see, in non-hierarchical cultures, the idea is if you're older, you're old-fashioned. You don't know anything. There's an American thinker, Mark Twain. He said that when I was 17, my father was a fool. Now I'm 25 and I'm amazed how much the old guy has learned in the last 8 years. Now, it's possible the father has learned some things, but it is also quite possible that the child has grown up. At 17, you can conquer the whole world. At 25, most people are trying to settle down in life and they're trying to take up some responsibility, and they understand life is not as easy as I thought it was. So sometimes it takes time. So, what is the nature of the relationship? So when Srila Prabhupada was in India, at that time, because he was a saintly person, because he was an intelligent person, people respected him. Now they didn't respect him enough in the sense that they wanted to obey him completely. They respected Sadhu, they would come and listen to him. But after that, they'll go on with their life, they wanted him to go on with his life. Now Prabhupada wanted transformative communication. When he went to America, it was not that he was respected as a saintly person who was a spiritual teacher who has come to deliver all of us. Prabhupada had to earn that respect day in and day out by his conduct. When Srila Prabhupada in the early days was staying at 22nd Avenue, he had invited some of his students also to come and start staying. Those would become serious. But their idea of seriousness was that they would regularly come for the classes and do a few things here and there. But when there would be programs, they would just eat the food and they would just leave and go. And Prabhupada himself had to clean all the plates. So Prabhupada cooked, Prabhupada, served the food in Prabhupada. He cleaned it. Then, every morning, when somebody was all staying together, Prabhupada was standing in queue to use the restroom. So, they didn't have that understanding. But gradually, by his actions, day in and day out, he slowly earned the respect. And then, when he had earned that respect, when they felt that Swamiji not only knows a lot of stuff, but he also cares for us. He wants what is good for us. That's the time when they became ready to lay down their life. So, quite often when we feel people don't listen to us, it may be because authority, we are assuming it, but they expect the authority has to be earned. So this is difficult. See, what happens is, especially different areas. So if a patient who is sick goes to a doctor, what happens is, the sickness itself creates the need. And once the need is created, the doctor says, okay, you take this treatment, take this medicine, it will be painful, but you have to take it. Okay, I take it. But if suppose we are not feeling any pain at all, and the doctor says, okay, you have to take this treatment, it involves a lot of expense, of money, of expense of time. So is it really necessary? Do I really need to take it? So what happens is, in that case, the doctor's words will not have weight. So what happens? Either the authority comes because I have a need, or I feel that what you want is good for me. So sometimes that particular connection, that relationship may take time to develop. And that's why when we go through a phase, it's important to not overreact. Why don't you listen to me? You are a terrible person. No, it may not be that they are terrible, the other person is a terrible person. It may be that they are just going through a different phase in their life. So, quite often in today's world, if we find that, say, our children or others who listen to us, it's not that they are being difficult. That's every part of it, but it's also that they are in difficulty. Because the world is a very complicated and confusing place. And one thing that happens is that one generation feels that my life is so different from your life that what you're telling me doesn't apply in my life. You're a different generation, I'm a different generation. And yes, there are things that are different from generation to generation, but there are things that are similar also. And that brings me to the last point, that is time. What do you mean by time? That sometimes we may have the best intentions, we may also be speaking in a balanced way, we may also have a particular relationship dynamic, but sometimes it just requires time for the results to come. So I'll give you examples of this. I focus on one, and then if we have time, we focus on an example. Let's look at the example of Vidura and Dhritarashtra. Just like the Chanakya Niti, Vidur Niti is also considered one of the classics in the Vedic tradition. Vidura's words of wisdom to Dhritarashtra. Vidura, throughout his life, was speaking words of wisdom to Dhritarashtra. But what happened with Dhritarashtra? He liked to listen to words of wisdom. And that's all he liked. He just liked to listen and nothing more. So because of that, although Vidura was speaking, the words were having no impact on Dhritarashtra. At one time, after the whole gambling match had happened, and the Pandavas had been exiled and had gone to the forest, Dhritarashtra one day called Vidura right in the middle of the night. He he was not able to sleep, and he called Vidura. Now, among all the people in that assembly, all those disasters that happened, Vidura had been the one who had opposed most vehemently. Now, Vidura, what happened was, Vidura was in an advisory position. Dhritarashtra was in more of an executive position. So the problem with being in an advisory position is that many times people don't take the advice. So now Vidura tried vehemently to get Dhritarashtra to stop, but Dhritarashtra would not listen at all. And then he woke Vidura in the middle of the night and called him to his palace. The king is calling. So Dhritarashtra said, "Oh Vidura, after all that has happened in the gambling, in that assembly, I am not able to sleep. I am feeling great anxiety for the safety of my sons. Please tell me how there can be auspiciousness." Now Vidura just got enraged for hearing this. Throughout the assembly, he was telling him, stop, 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 he didn't stop. And now, after that, you see, he goes on, not on a rant, yelling at Dhritarashtra, but he speaks very eloquently. He says that, okay, you are asking about how to bolt the door of the stable after the horses run away. Okay, you are asking how to close the water canal after all the water is flowing. Okay, you are asking how to save the barn after the fire has reduced to ashes. You should have listened to my words when I was telling you to stop the gambling match. You did not listen, and therefore all is lost. Dhritarashtra said, "No, that cannot be. Please tell me. What can you do? No, how can there be auspiciousness for my sons?" He said, "You have antagonized the Pandavas. They were living peacefully, and your son was living peacefully. But you antagonized them, and they have all taken vows to destroy your sons. There is no hope. Vidura, please don't speak like this. Tell me what can be done." Vidura finally says, the only chance for their survival I see is that you summon Duryodhana to the palace and have him arrested. Have him tied hand and foot and tell him to go. Take him to the Pandavas, and in front of the Pandavas, let him fall at the feet of Yudhishthira and beg for forgiveness for what he did to Draupadi. Bhima will never forgive him, but Yudhishthira's virtues. If Yudhishthira forgives, then Bhima will not go against his brother. On hearing this, now sometimes what happens is, we ask for advice, but we don't want the advice. What we want is like sometimes, are we seeking a guru to show us the way, or are we seeking a guru to help us to stay on our way? This is what I want to do, and you bless me with this. So like that, Vidura, what are you speaking? Today, your words have confirmed to me a suspicion that I had for a long time. You are partial to Pandu's sons. You don't care for my sons, you care only for Pandu's sons. Now that your partiality is exposed, I have no desire to care for you. Go wherever you like. I want to be free of you. When Vidura heard these words, Vidura's heart was not there in the kingdom. The thought that every day he would have come to this, he would have to come to the same palace where he had to endure helplessly as Draupadi was being disrobed. Thought was terrible. Nowadays, as there's more and more trauma research, what we know is that if somewhere, someplace, somebody has experienced something terrible, then if they go to that place, traumatic memories get triggered. So now, if something terrible happens to someone, so they get traumatized. But if somebody is supposed to be in the position of their protector, and they are not able to do anything at that time, that pain is even more. So Vidura felt that I am an elder in the family, and Draupadi is the daughter-in-law of this family. And when she was dishonored, I could do nothing to protect her. And nobody in this assembly saw. So the thought of coming day after day to the assembly, that caused dread to him. So he decided, now that Dhritarashtra has said, so he hitched his chariot, got his charioteer, and he followed the path of the Pandavas. He asked the citizens, and it was late night, so by early morning, he reached the Pandavas. And then Bhima saw Vidura coming. So what has Vidura now come for? Because previously, it was Vidura who had brought the message of Dhritarashtra. Come for the gambling match. So Yudhishthira said, calm down. Vidura is our well-wisher. And Vidura told Yudhishthira what had happened the previous night. And he said, I have no desire to stay in that kingdom. Can I stay with you? Now, Yudhishthira welcomed Vidura. He said, you have always been our protector. And Vidura was not really a threat. So at that time, he fought Dhritarashtra. So that's why he did not have fear. Kunti had stayed back this time with Vidura's wife. And they were not a threat. So Yudhishthira didn't have any fear that Dhritarashtra would do anything to harm them. So Vidura said, yes, please, we'll be blessed to have your association with the forest. And then here, on the other side, the next morning, the Dhritarashtra woke up. So he woke up and he said, oh, Vidura is not just my brother, he is my friend, he is my confidant. What did I do? Why did I send him away? So he called Sanjay. He said, Sanjay, please go and find where Vidura is and please call him back. So then Sanjay went. And then Sanjay went back. So Sanjay went there and he conveyed Dhritarashtra's petition. Now, when Vidura heard it, Vidura looked at Yudhishthira. And the Pandavas decided, and it was unspoken, because Sanjay was there, so they didn't speak anything. But Pandavas decided that it would be good. Pandavas felt and Vidura also felt the same way, that it would be good if Vidura is in the kingdom. At least if Duryodhana makes some more terrible schemes, Vidura will be there, Vidura will be aware. Previously they had tried to burn the Pandava in Varnava, Vidura had warned them and helped them prepare. And Vidura also felt that Dhritarashtra could be reformed, and Dhritarashtra could be saved. So, in the Mahabharata, often the question comes up that there are some good characters who stay, or who don't come to the right side, or who stay on the wrong side. So, why is that? So actually there are two things. There is Vidura and there is Dhritarashtra. And there is also another pair. There is Bhishma and there is Dhritarashtra. So, now one among why Bhishma stayed on the side of Duryodhana is a mystery. There are many reasons. But we look at Duryodhana could be. And that's why Bhishma throughout the battle, before the battle and throughout the battle, whenever Duryodhana was asked for counsel, Bhishma was saying, I'll fight wholeheartedly for you. But nobody can win against us. On the 4th day of the war, I'll come back to Vidura and Dhritarashtra. But the point I'm making is that Dhritarashtra's word, Vidura's words did not have effect on Dhritarashtra. But Vidura had hope that Dhritarashtra could be saved. Similarly, Bhishma had hope that Duryodhana could be saved. So what happened is that with respect to Dhritarashtra, there was a force dragging him down. Who was that? Duryodhana. Now Bhishma felt that there was a force dragging Duryodhana down. And that is Karna. Now was Karna actually dragging Duryodhana down? Well, in one sense, yes. What had happened was that on the Kaurava side, none of the other Kauravas had that deep-rooted envy towards the Pandavas, except for Dushasana. And other Kauravas were more or less obedient followers. So now Dushasana also there were some cracks. So when Krishna had come as a Shanti Dut, Krishna spoke so persuasively using Sam, Ram, Ved and Gandha. And Krishna talked about how Arjuna had gone to Swarga and had got back celestial weapons, how Bhima had destroyed undefeatable demons. And hearing the prowess of the Pandavas, Dhritarashtra's heart started trembling in fear. That's not always trembling in fear, but Dushasana's. And then Dushasana said, suddenly he burst out. Okay, if Duryodhana doesn't accept Krishna's peace proposal, then maybe we should arrest him and hand him over to Keshav. And that way we can have peace. Now Dushasana remembered how Bhima had taken a vow, to kill him. So when Dushasana spoke like this, it's a complete silence fell. And for Duryodhana, this was a nightmare scenario. Duryodhana's whole life was trying to create a division among the Pandavas. If as long as the Pandavas were united, they were very difficult to defeat. He wanted to break the Pandavas. And in many ways, his attempt to disrobe Draupadi was not so much driven out of lust as it was out of pride and ego. In general, whenever there is like sexual predators, there's a crime like rape, it's less about lust and it is more about power. If it's only lust, a person can just go and go to a prostitute to fulfill their desire. But the idea is it's more about power and control. I can force you to submit to my will. So for him, what he wanted to do was, if he tries to disrobe Draupadi, she will be humiliated. She is humiliated, the Pandavas will be humiliated. And the Pandavas will break apart because of that. Because Yudhishthira has done this, surely Bhima will not tolerate this. And Bhima will go against Yudhishthira. So I'm going on little sidetracks already, but I'm talking here about the power of speech also, how it works. So what happened is Draupadi was about to be, before the disrobia started, Draupadi tried to reason with us and she said that if Yudhishthira already gambled himself and lost, then how could he gamble me? If he was not his own master, was he my master to gamble me? Was he? So at that time, Duryodhana tries to play husband against wife. And Duryodhana says that, oh Draupadi, if you admit that Yudhishthira, who is Dharmaraj, committed adharma, then I will at this moment excuse all the gambling losses that you have made and I'll return the kingdom back to you. Although Draupadi was in danger, Draupadi was mortified, but still, she was also a Kshatriya lady. She understood how politics works. So she said, Yudhishthira never wanted to gamble at all. It is only because his elders instructed him to that he gambled. Therefore, let those elders decide whether what was taken in gambling was ethical or not. So there she stuck with her husband. Of course, afterwards in the forest, she questioned him quite strongly. But anyway, my point was, he was always trying to split the Pandavas. And when that argument didn't work and Draupadi was about to be disrobed, at that time Bhima exploded. And Bhima said to Arjuna, Arjuna, bring fire! He says, I will burn the hands of Yudhishthira. These were the hands by which he gambled the fair Panchali away. Those hands deserve to be burned. Now Arjuna, look at Yudhishthira, look at Bhima. Arjuna would have said to him, how can you speak like this about your brother? But that would not have worked. So what did Arjuna do? Did he obey Bhima? So he did obey Bhima. So Arjuna said, oh Bhima, do you really want to speak words that will increase the joy of Duryodhana? And Bhima glared at Duryodhana and he saw how Duryodhana was smirking. What happened was actually, if you look at the siblings, that it's very difficult to think of two siblings who are as different as Yudhishthira and Bhima. Both of them Kshatriyas, but Yudhishthira was more like a Brahman Kshatriya. He will bend backward to try to negotiate and avoid fighting. Bhima is like a Kshatriya. He's Kshatriya square. He's like itching for a fight. And both of them are older to Arjuna. And yet Arjuna has to act as a balancer between them. We have that later story where, where Lakshman says that being a younger brother is difficult, so I will be the elder brother in the next life. But try being the younger brother for two strong-minded elder brothers. That was predicament. But Arjuna used expertise. So my point was, Duryodhana was trying to break the Pandavas, but here he was seeing that his own brother was speaking against him. So Duryodhana just walked out of the assembly. Now when this is the peace negotiations are going on, he walked out of the assembly, and when he walked out of the assembly, at that time all the other 98 brothers, they were watching Duryodhana go out, Dushasana was there. Whom to follow, Duryodhana or Dushasana? Whom to follow, Duryodhana or Dushasana? Till that, Duryodhana and Dushasana have always been together. So they decided that Duryodhana, not that they respected Duryodhana or they loved Dushasana, but they feared Duryodhana more. Duryodhana has tried to burn the Pandavas alive, Duryodhana has tried to poison Bhima. If we go against him, who knows what he'll do? Better follow him. So one by one, all the 98 brothers went out. And Dushasana was left all alone. And everybody looked at Dushasana. What is he going to do? Is he going to stand up against Duryodhana? Then Dushasana also meekly went out. And then Dushasana went to where, in a nearby hall, all the Pandavas had assembled. All the Kauravas had assembled. And there, now Duryodhana is very expert. We may say he's fool, he is misdirected, he's evil. He was evil, but he was not foolish. He was foolish because he was arrogant, but he had some leadership skills which were misled, unfortunately. So, where he heard Dushasana's footsteps coming outside the room where he was, he started speaking to his brothers. He says, this Keshava is very cunning. the way he speaks, anybody can be fooled by his speech. Just look at our Dushasan. Dushasan was affected by the cunning, Keshava's cunning speech. Isn't it Dushasan? And yeah, that's what happened to me. I was taken in by his speech. So in this way, what happened was Duryodhan got Dushasan back on his side. But why I was giving this example is that actually that Dushasan also had a little split from Duryodhan. But the one person who always stayed with Duryodhan was Karna. And that's why Bhishma would often minimize Karna. When Bhishma said that Karna is Ardharathi, because Bhishma had that hope that if Karna, if Duryodhan think that Karna is not good enough, that Duryodhan will not dare to fight against the Pandavas. That's why he was minimizing Karna. At one particular point in the fourth day, the Duryodhan suffered a terrible defeat. A large contingent of his army was killed. And then Duryodhan thought, I'll fight with Bhima and I'll defeat Bhima. And Bhima just wounded him and knocked him out. And Bhima went and started on a rampage and destroying his army. Then Duryodhan came back to consciousness and started fighting. At that time, Ghatotkacha came. And Duryodhan and Ghatotkacha had a fight and Ghatotkacha knocked him out also. So he had thought, I will defeat Bhima, but he had been defeated by Bhima and even by Bhima's son. He was utterly jubilated. So at that time, that evening he came and he asked Vishnu, he said, how is it that my army has more soldiers, my army has more experienced generals, and yet I have been defeated? And then Krishna says, oh Prince, I have been crying myself hoarse telling you this. There has not been, there is not, and there will never be any army that can win if Krishna is on the opposite side. For the first time in his life, Duryodhana asked a question. Who is Krishna? Who is this Krishna? Now he knew Krishna as a prince of Dwarka. Who really is Krishna? And that's one of the key places in the Mahabharata, in the main story of the Mahabharata, where Krishna's glory is spoken by Bhishma. Bhishma comes alive. It is for this moment that he is living. And he speaks about Krishna's childhood pastime. He talks about the many demons that Krishna has scared. And this time, Duryodhana hears calmly. His ego has been humbled by being defeated on that day. He hears. And that night, when the assembly is concluded, he goes to his tent. He's about to lie down to sleep. He thinks about what Bhishma has been speaking. If Krishna is really God, then there is no harm in offering respects to him. So he goes down in the direction of Krishna and then goes to sleep. And after many days, he has a peaceful sleep. But then the next morning when he wakes up, he remembers. Not Bhishma's words. What he remembers is, if Krishna were God, then how could I have succeeded in sending the Pandavas to the forest? How could I have succeeded in humiliating Draupadi? Because I succeeded in all those things, therefore, he is not God. So here, what I am giving by these two examples is, Bhishma was very wise. And he was so wise that Krishna himself told Yudhishthira, you go and hear from Bhishma. Now Vidura was also wise. Both Vidura and Bhishma, when they spoke, Vidura spoke to Dhritarashtra, then his word wasn't effective. Bhishma spoke to Duryodhana, his word wasn't effective. So just because our words are filled with wisdom, because we have good intention, we have good intelligence, that that does not necessarily mean our words will be effective. Srila Prabhupada was preaching for 40 years in India. His words did not have that much impact. But that does not mean that they will never have an impact. For Duryodhana, what happened was, he never gave the animosity up. And it was Bhishma who fell before, and then Duryodhana and Karna fell. Or Karna fell and then Duryodhana fell. But in the case of Vidura, when Duryodhana died, after that, Vidura's words and Dhritarashtra had impact. They took time, but the impact didn't happen. So sometimes we may be speaking the best words, but they may take some time to have an impact. As if you're leading someone in a particular way and they're not ready to go, you open the door for them. And if they don't come in, don't slam the door in their face. You fool, you're not coming across. No, you can open the door. If they don't come in, just end up calling them. Keep the door open, at least partly for them. Maybe they will go through something else in their life. So the Dhritarashtra had to go through a particular incident in his life. That was the death of Duryodhana. And after the death of Duryodhana, he became very receptive to hear Vidura's message. That's why sometimes we just have to let time pass. That does not mean we have to keep spending time with that person, but we give that person time. That life teaches many lessons. Or sometimes life reinforces the lessons that we are teaching. And if we wait sufficiently, then what we have spoken, others will become more receptive to that in due course. Suppose a parent is telling a child, don't do this. What you are doing is a mistake. If you don't listen to me, you will suffer terribly, and one day you will come crawling back on my knees, on your knees to me. What will happen is, even if what they do is a mistake, even if they realize it's a mistake, they will not come crawling back. But because it has become an ego issue. So sometimes our speech, it is meant, effective speech means sometimes we get the other person to do the right thing. The effectiveness of the speech is sometimes we get the other person to do the right thing, but sometimes all that we can do is just maintain the right relationship. They may not do the right thing, but we maintain the right relationship, and with the passage of time, later they will come and do the right thing. So that's why it's not always in our power. Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu katachana. We do our part in speaking, and sometimes it works immediately, sometimes it will work after some time, sometimes it may work after a long time. But we do our part to the best of our capacity. I'll summarize what I discussed today. We're talking about why don't people listen to me? How can we make our speech more effective? I talked mainly about 3 points. What is the acronym? A was? Analysis to understand. So the theme was, when I'm speaking, it's like there's a well, and at the bottom of the well, is the lobe reaching the person at the bottom? Does the person trust who's at the top? And does the person have the capacity to come out? So we discussed the well metaphor. So analysis was, we discussed how speech has to be both sensitive and sensitive. This is where in this section only I spend maximum time in terms of conceptual analysis. Sensitive means there are two things. It's non-agitating, and it is pleasing, like a funnel. And sensible means it is truthful and it is helpful. So now if it's only one of these, if it's only sensitive, too far it will become sentimental, it will become headless. We don't want to speak lies and mislead others. At the same time, we want to sensitivity, we become heartless. So, yeah, headless, only sensible. So you want it to be both, then it's most likely to be effective. And C was the connection that we have. So sometimes the authority just comes from, in any relationship speech is to be given authority. Authority can sometimes come from position, and the person accepts it, sometimes it has to come from disposition. Disposition means it needs to be earned with time. So we discuss about Srila Prabhupada in America. He had to earn that authority. Once it was earned, then people were able to do anything for him. So for us, sometimes this is a challenge. We expect the relationship to be more hierarchical, but the relationship is more egalitarian. And then gradually by our action, when we say earn authority means the other person has to feel two things, that we actually want to help and that we can help. That they need to have the confidence that we are their well-wisher and that we have the wisdom it takes to help them. So when that authority is earned to a disposition, then they will be able to excel. And lastly was time. Sometimes, despite our best effort, the other person himself may not have the capacity or the inclination. So there we discuss the example of how Vidura, his words on Dhritarashtra, they had effect, but it was after a long time. It required a long time, lifetime effort. On the other hand, it is to Bhishma and Dhritarashtra, Bhishma and Duryodhana. The words, they never had the effect because Dhritarashtra was never ready to listen. Therefore, when we talk about the effect of our speech, all that we can try to get other person to do the right thing, but sometimes we cannot get them to do the right thing. So all that we can do is try to maintain the right relationship, so that eventually life may teach them lessons by which they may become more ready to hear the right thing. And that's how the prayer we started with was, help me to learn how to help others to learn. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
One minute, one question anyone has?
Hare Krishna. Very enlightening words from you. They were just wonderful what your class was. Prabhuji, just give you enlighten us on how to let go.
How to let go?
Let go.
Yeah, I understand. And basically, the only way to let go.
Forgiveness also.
The only way to let go is to find something else to hold on to. Because we cannot simply let go of things. Something may be very painful, somebody may invested a lot in that person and that person has disappointed us. So the only way we can actually let go is by putting something else in, having something else to hold on to. And when we talk about forgiving also, it is not so much forgiveness for the other person. See, there is forgiveness of two kinds. When we talk about forgiveness, it's a big subject. There is interpersonal forgiveness and there is intrapersonal forgiveness. We talk about interpersonal means what? Actually, the other person wants forgiveness and asks for forgiveness and then we forgive. Now, sometimes I was doing a mediation and one person had felt very hurt by the other person. So this person had written a letter and he started the mediation by saying, I have forgiven you and I have written this letter for you. And the other person said, I forgive you for your audacity to think that I need your forgiveness.
So sometimes there is no chance of the mediation working if this is the attitude of people.
But sometimes it happens that the other person does not even acknowledge that they have done something wrong. That is the time when forgiveness becomes very difficult. But that is the time when that we cannot have any interpersonal forgiveness. That time, forgiving the other person is not so much for the other person as it is for us. The forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves. And one way we can reconcile it is that maybe I had hurt somebody else in the past and I never sought forgiveness. So the hurt that I had done to that person, maybe there's some other person that is maybe this life or previous life that is coming to over here. It's like sometimes when you lend money to someone and that person has no capacity or no inclination to return that money, and we don't want to get into the trouble of suing the other person. So we may just decide this is a debt that I pay. So like that, forgiveness sometimes is such a debt that we give. So again, but for that kind of forgiveness also, what is important is that we have to find some other purpose for our life. To put something behind us, we have to put something more attractive in front of us. And that's where bhakti can help us. Now, however we may have been hurt, whatever may have happened in our life, if we are alive, that means Krishna is not done with us. That means Krishna has some purpose that he wants to do to us. So, if we focus on Krishna and on how we can serve Krishna, Krishna, what can I do for you? Then that will help us to find some meaningful purpose, something to hold on to. And that will make it easier for us to let go. Okay. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki
Jai.